Welcome to Small Town Times. We're going to be talking about ice rinks because council's made a historic step last night. They decided to strike an ad hoc committee out of the committee. And we have Dave Mendocino, past city councillor, and I'll be calling a couple special guests there while we're talking. Dave, what did you see at the meeting?
Well, it was an interesting meeting last night, certainly. As we know, staff didn't come, they created options, but they didn't come forward with any recommendations. What I saw last night was there seems to be some councillors that don't even want to do the project. To me, that's a non-starter. How you could not think a community recreation center is needed in the community is beyond me. There's another fraction that want to go ahead with the $70 million, and there was some good arguments brought forward by staff last night to say that is the best way to go forward. We know exactly now what we have in front of us. And I think there's another fraction of council that want to go do something totally different, maybe a design build. In a design build, we can't forget that there's still $52 million on the table, $26 million from the feds. The city had put in $26 million. This is going back to when the Class A estimate was done in November of 2022, and it was going to cost 51 point something million. So there's a group that want to take that, and a design build is something. It's a reverse of the process that happened. You basically take your $52 million, you identify a contractor and say, here's $52 million, we need 2 twin pads, and basically tell us if you can do it. So, I mean, obviously that one would be a scaled down version of what you see in front of us, which, I mean, being involved in this process myself personally from pretty well day one, the one thing we wanted to do was construct a community recreation center. That's what the public told us they wanted. We went out to the public, extensive consultation done. The design that's in front of us, the amenities that are in there, the community rooms, the walking track, the things over and above 2 ice pads, make it a community recreation center. So if you're taking all that stuff out, all that consultation that went into where we are today, you're basically going to take all that stuff out and you're going to just worry about 2 ice pads. So the consultation is really, you can't do it. I understand why they're doing it. I mean, $70 million is a big pill to swallow. And maybe they want to see if they can do a design build. But, you know, after months pass, they could find that even a design build could be $60 million. We don't know today. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 30 days. I am glad that they put a short time frame on it, because one way or another, we need to get going. I mean, it's been 12 years. Councillor Bain alluded to that last night. It's been a long time coming. And it's, you know, something needs to be brought forward. The funding from the federal government, if I'm going on my memory here, but I believe if you take advantage of that funding, it has to be built by March of 2026. Whether you get an extension on that is another matter. Whether you can take that funding and go to another site. There seemed to be some wiggle room there last night from what I heard from the CEO, John Severino. But one way or another, they need to get going on something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm of a similar opinion. I could go for or against it at this point. I've said many times I don't think it's perfect, of course, and definitely more than it should cost, but in this day and age. But what did come out was the fact that they never really did take a good hard look at what they could do with the West Ferris Arena and how much it would cost to keep it. For those who don't want to spend the big bucks and have a new place, there's a number of reasons that it could be very expensive to fix up West Ferris and not worth it, and maybe impossible to make it accessible as far as the sizes and the entranceways and what's needed. So I'm not sure if that's a red herring, even thinking about that anymore. Seems like it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I went through that thought process, and the previous council went through that thought process, and I think the previous council, the 2014-2018 council went through that process. From the information that I received, West Ferris Arena needs to be demoed to put in all those. And again, I understand the information council wants to obtain on West Ferris, this current council. I'm a little surprised some of them don't know the information already. They've been sitting there for 8 months now, 7 months.
Well, everybody's been focused on the new project, right? So
yeah, but you can't totally. You've got to decide. You've got to make a decision that for yourself personally as a councillor that West Ferris you're either supporting spending multi millions of dollars to renovate it, rehab it, and how many years is that going to get you? It's certainly not going to get you 60 years like a new one will. So you need to go through that process. And some are still struggling with that. And I get it, but they're going to have to one way or another make a decision. In my mind, it's not feasible. It's not feasible, and it's not the right thing for the community to rehab West Ferris Arena. The amount of money, by the time you spend the amount of money that you're going to spend, I mean, right now the city has $26 million of its own money on the table.
I was going to ask you. I thought that cost us $10 million to get the 26 at least, possibly more than $10 million. The added necessity to be qualified for the grant required some expenditure, right? They had to make some changes to the designs. They had to change the design,
right?
And then they had to add in some costs for things to make it green, right? So I heard that was like between 10 and 15 million, or at least 10 million.
Well, it's at the end of the day, I'm looking at it maybe a little. I understand what you're saying, but before the funding, we had 35 million that it was going to cost us on our own. Mm-hmm. The feds come in with 26 million. Dollar for dollar, we have to put in 26 million. That's where the 52 million came from. That takes care of everything. You can still, if this council decides to do a design build, you can still, you're still qualified for that federal funding if you want to scale that project, shrink that project down. Mm-hmm. But from what I can see right now, dollar for dollar, we've got the project went from the project we thought the project was going to go from 35 million to 52 million to take care of the green net zero portion. Well, we saw where it went. It went to 70 million.
Yeah.
We also saw that projects across the province, similar projects, are 30% over initial budget. This one went 40% over. I still have a little hard time accepting the fact that a Class A estimate was professionally done in November of 2022, and by May, 6 months later, they're that far off the numbers. That doesn't jive with me still.
I think it's the construction companies feeling the same thing everybody else does, is that we're not sure where everything's going, and they'll probably be padding their estimates and costs because they're not sure. So the fear factor wasn't in there for this type of recessionary, inflationary period that seems to have no end, right?
Well, maybe it is the times that we're in. But again, a professional Class A estimate, maybe they couldn't gauge it or they didn't know how to gauge it. But in my experience, it's the first time I've seen a Class A estimate go that far overboard.
Well, it's interesting. I just saw in the Toronto Star today, there's a story where they just figuring out that the increased interest rate is driving inflation because a big chunk of people's increased costs of living are their mortgage payments that are going up at the same time the interest rate's going up. Jeez, nobody knew that? You double people's the costs for their interest for their mortgages, and of course that's inflationary in nature.
Well, look what happened to Castleholm and the financing costs there. I mean, they didn't know. I don't know if anybody could have predicted interest rates going to this level.
Do you think that this ad hoc committee, they're going to look at their options? They might come up with this design build, put more of a regular style arena together further up on the rocks, so it's one piece isn't dangling in the swamp.
At this point, with this ad hoc committee, if the option they bring to council, because this is the option they think council will approve, is a design build. And in my mind, that means you've got $52 million. You go to a contractor and say, we want a design build. So we want what you're describing, 2 pads put together. That's it. Here's $52 million. If that's what this council sees fit as that's the way they want to go, then that's the way they should go. It's gone on too long to
I'm calling George.
Do anything else.
George, Dave Dale, you got 5 minutes to talk about the arenas?
I do, yeah.
You're right on. I got Dave Mendocino here in the studio.
Hey, George.
Hi, David.
So, George, what are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts?
Yeah, what are your thoughts of this historical moment of the committee creating another committee for potentially another committee?
I mean, it's an interesting procedure. Now, I had a little further look at some information on Bay Today, because I thought, I better see what Bay Today has got on that. And I guess the way they're doing this is they're trying to explore some other options, and the options aren't clear. I took a look at now. I haven't seen anything official. I don't have access to official stuff. Just what's in the media.
Well, I was at the meeting, so what I'll tell you is that Gary Gardner and a couple others are thinking that they can do a design build, possibly for cheaper, that would suit the purposes that would come in cheaper. That's one of the main options that I'd be looking at. The other option is that there's talk about, do we really need to do it? Can we just fix up West Ferris?
Okay, all right, but West Ferris is probably a non-starter.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's too bad it was a centennial project, but and actually North Bay's having their centennial in a couple of years, so maybe they're on time to launch another arena in time for North Bay centennial. Could be.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a centennial project.
I think so. The other thing is, a design build is, I don't know why that wasn't considered even earlier. I know that there was always this big discussion about that the property wasn't suitable for, you had to design something to suit the ground. It would have been interesting to see if you came up with a design, because I'm sure there are designs sitting on shelves of arenas that can be built, double rinks that can be built reasonably, and give it to the soils people and say, all right, fine, how would you site this on that property? Go about it that way. Because to me, this $80 million, I always called it the Ice Palace anyway, so as far as I was concerned, they were building something there that really wasn't much of a community center if you looked at the activities that were in there. It was just a very expensive ice hockey rink with more walls than you need if you're going to have a double rink. So, I wasn't surprised that that came over budget, but there's been a lot of work done too. Over the years they've done studies on locations, studies on this, studies on that. But, you know, I think the time's come. They got to make a decision.
And what would you decide if they don't come up with any other options other than build it for this $72 million?
Well, I don't know. I'd seriously have to have a look and see what a design build that might work there.
Yeah, that's
I know that was never really fully flushed out. So, you know, I mean, what does it cost? I mean, you can get one off the shelf. Because I understand, I mean, the greatest need is that the rink has to be accessible. And currently we don't have an accessible rink, do we?
just the gardens, kind of.
Yeah, the gardens, kind of. And of course, the gardens is not in the picture for the kind of activity that you want to have out at Omischl. And I mean, Omischl is a wonderful, spring and summer and sort of fall sports center. I mean, it works well. I go by it often, and I mean, there's it's not fully utilized, but on some evenings there, I mean, it's full. So I think
that was one of the other options, or one of the other issues, is that during the shoulder season with football going on, they're still not going to have enough dressing rooms to operate both ice pads at the same time as football games are going on. Yeah, I know they don't, and it's been a while of them wanting. Yeah.
Maybe you build an economic, an economical double rink, and put an addition on the existing building there, and put some dressing rooms in there. I mean, I'm sure you're not going to get to $80 million.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll watch and learn, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's always easy to. I mean, people on council, they have a tough decision to make, because I'm sure that they're getting pressure from different areas, and they know that the clock is ticking, and I mean the clock's ticking on double ring too. That's the next thing you got to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you also have to take a look at where the trend is going in minor hockey and ringette, and the number of kids that you actually have in the community. And
well, right now they're saying that they do have a need for more ice time for the current level of teams out there. There was an increase since 2012 with the university women's team getting up and running, and more AAA teams. So Ian Kilgore mentioned that, from his information, that there is still a pressing need for more ice. I'm not sure about in 10 years and how the demographics work.
Yeah, well, we'll have to, somebody's going to have to look at that 10 years from now.
Yep.
And the other thing about it is maybe they've got to reassess the uses at Memorial Gardens, because, it hasn't been fully utilized, for the way that it was built.
Anyways, as the world turns, eh?
Yeah, well, there's always something, David, isn't there?
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to chat about what you just said with Dave, and I'm sure we're not going to solve anything today, but we might find some interesting points.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, man.
See you, George.
I don't know if he misses politics.
Well, I think it's important to look at talk about two things right now, if we can.
Yeah.
This concept of design build.
Mm-hmm.
When we started this process back in December of 2018, even before that, when we first started talking about replacing West Ferris Arena, the user groups were front and center. Consult. We ended up building a community and recreation center based on the feedback.
Designing. You haven't built nothing yet.
We ended up designing a community recreation center based on the feedback that we got from the user groups, extensive feedback. Based on the initial feedback they gave us, we came in at 95,000 square feet a build. We dropped it down to 75,000 square feet because there's no way we could afford 95. This is 2019 thinking now. We went back to the user groups after we had the initial draft, and here's what 75,000 square feet looks like. We ended up adding another 10,000 square feet based the walking track and this and that, based on the feedback we got from community groups. So we designed a community recreation center. We didn't design 2 twin pads put together on a design build. You could have done a design build, but is that the proper way to do it? In my opinion, it's not. You need to consult. It's the user groups that are using the facility. They're the ones that told us pretty much, and they still didn't get everything they wanted. We had to be realistic. But at the end of the day, what you see in front of you is a community recreation center that was designed based on extensive feedback we got from the community. What's striking right now is if they end up going to a design build, which again, if that's the way this council can see going forward to do this, that's the way they should go. But you're basically taking all that consultation and all that feedback from the user groups out of the picture because you're only building 2 ice pads. And again, if that's what ends up being built, I know how tough of a decision it is. I know the position they're in. I think this next 30 days, I think they could have done it within their existing committee or this ad hoc committee. I think they need to take this next 30 days but I hope a recommendation comes out of there, something. And it could be just a design build, but if that's what they come back to, that's what they should build. As far as the usage, we need 4.8 ice pads here in the city of North Bay. Our participation rates are higher than they were pre-pandemic. So, and it was mentioned last night about the battalion and the Lakers. Out of that 4.8, the battalion and the Lady Lakers and the men's Laker team take up 0.5 of that 4.8. Even if you took them out of the picture, and I don't foresee any of those 3 entities leaving the picture in the next number of years, you took them out, you still need over 4 ice pads. You need to build something. And with ladies, the participation rate for ladies, girls hockey going through the roof, and it'll continue to go up. You're going to need it. There's about 1,800 kids. The report said 56% of the usage is from the youth. There's about 1,800 kids registered to use our ice pads. For every kid that's registered, there's 3 adults on an average that comes to see that kid play. You're talking over 7,000 people that come. This is just for kids hockey that come in and out of that arena.
Would you vote for this tendered project, the $72 million?
You're asking me something that I haven't really gone through that process in my head. I took note of the fact last night, and again, I haven't been part of these discussions, so George alluded to it. It's nice. It would have been nice to be, obviously, if you were part of these discussions, you'd have more information. It was alluded to last night that the $70 million at the end of the day might be your best option based on everything that you know right now. I would have supported taking this next 30 days because obviously if I'm sitting there and you see the way council is, I would have supported going, the next 30 days and seeing what we came up with. But that $70 million, that to build it the way it is, it's still on the table from what I can see.
So yeah, you would support that. I'm just kidding. From what you're saying, because if you go design build and it's spared down, it's sort of reduced as far as its utility goes, considering the consultations and the need for a community center-ish, and to meet other people's needs and amenities, you were saying. If you lose that, you're not really serving the community, from what I'm hearing you saying, right?
Well, this from what I heard from the community, what the last council heard from the community. This isn't something that we we just woke up one day and said, this is what we're going to build. This is the community,
Okay.
the user groups telling us what they wanted.
And all the effort and time and money spent on the design, I think it's $2.5 million at least, maybe $3 million, has been spent getting to this point right here, maybe a little bit more. But what you have is a contractor ready to build it at a certain price, in hand, ready to go, and you should be able to meet the deadline. I'm thinking you would vote for this.
You're sorry?
I'm thinking you would vote for this and say, yeah, build it.
Well, I could, you might have the majority of council voting for it at this point in time. You need to go through that thought process. But yeah, I might, if that was the best option on the table, I mean, the staff have put together a financing plan that works. If that was the only option on the table, they could, so in 30 days, they could decide, and I would understand the decision, I guess. We're going to go design build. Okay, so the $70 million all of a sudden is off the table. Contractor's going to walk away. Excuse me. You could find out in 6, 8, 10 months, a year, that, okay, the design build, what's it going to cost us? It's going to cost us $62, $63 million. Maybe, right? Then where are you at? Now, all of a sudden you've taken away all those amenities that the user groups wanted, and you're still, the other part of it could come in at 52 and on budget and everything is fine. If they do go to design build, maybe an option, if they could figure out a way to do this and still get the funding, the federal funding, you put those 2 ice pads, which is all they are at this point in time, on a design build. If you can change the location and put it at the gardens, then you combine the YMCA with the twin pads and the Memorial Gardens. You've got a walking track really at Memorial Gardens already that the public uses, right?
Didn't they stop that?
No, it's still going. As far as I know, it's still going on.
Yeah, it definitely could be still going on anyways.
But if they go design build, and I think
that opens the door to another location as far as you're concerned.
Well, I mean, it's no secret. The Gardens has always been the number one location for me. I mean, I was on the wrong end on that vote back in December or whenever it was, December 2018. It was a 6-5 vote to go to Omischl. There's nothing wrong with Omischl in my opinion, but Memorial Gardens was
the better option.
It
had a lot of utility because it was attached to the premium arena, and have a lot of things going on in one place.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts right now. I mean, all the geotech, all those things you got to do before you even put shovel in the ground have all been done at Omischl. Time is really not on council's side right now if they want to take advantage of that $26 million.
Yeah.
Some may not, I don't know where they're at with that. But if they want to take advantage of that $26 million, they got to get in the ground within the next year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I understand why they did the 30 days because they're obviously not together. There's no clear direction that they have here. So they need to take this next 30 days and figure out what they want to do. I'm just hoping that some recommendation comes out of there, whether it's the current one or a design build, to go ahead with something.
I'm going to read out a message I got from another one of your great friends, Larry Fold. Okay, so in light of the revelations last night, have you changed your mind on anything? This is open the sentence. West Ferris trusses are fine. Only concern is flat roof section. He's thinking that the real reason the project went forward was based on misinformation about the West Ferris's lifespan and the trusses and whatnot. Might be a conspiracy theory there. Here's a good question. The hub, $1 million, it's been proposed that $1 million go towards the twin pad project from the technical hub that was supposed to be built downtown. The
Innovation Hub.
Yeah, Innovation Hub. What do you think of that not going forward and that money being used for the twin pad?
You've got to set your priorities. I mean, I'm a big supporter of that innovation hub, but if council decides a $70 million route is the way to go, and they have to take that million, then I would support that. You got to set your priorities, just like we set priorities. It's interesting. You look back on the last 4 years. The last council, 2014, 2018, set Castle Home and Community Recreation Center as their two major projects, and we had to delay the Community Recreation Center 3 times. Once when the pandemic hit and all the what was hitting the fan, and we didn't know what was what for a few months. We put a slight pause on it. Then we had to put a pause on it because the financial package that the Castle Home Board was trying to shove down the municipalities' throats was not acceptable, and we were wondering if we could do both. If we had to go with what Castle Home initially proposed, which we know our MPP ended up coming to the table, we ended up a financial plan that works. So it was delayed then because we wanted, from a financial standpoint, it was prudent to do that. You don't want to go ahead with your second major project if you don't know what your first one's going to cost you. And then it was delayed. We were ready to go January of 2022. We were finally ready to go to tender, and this federal funding potentially came up. And by the time we applied for it and got approved for it, it was June of 2022. So, it would have been great if we could have pulled the trigger. That last council was ready to pull the trigger, I think, on a project. But
yeah, there was an additional delay on the grant thing because once it was looked like you were going to be approved for it, you had to have the engineering done to actually prove it, right?
So in June of 2022, when we found out we got the money, then we had to pivot we had a completed design ready to go, but we had to pivot from that and create a design that was net zero.
Yep.
So the only part of that I remember thinking, that was last summer. I remember thinking the only thing I don't like about this whole thing, I mean, you get $26 million from the feds. The only thing I didn't like about it is I came to realize pretty quickly that, and so did the rest of council, is by the time the design, the rejigged design came in, it would be too late to
put it to tender.
Last council to, right?
Yeah.
And I heard some banter last night about, or at least from one councillor about, well, why didn't they do it? Well, that's, it's circumstances. Just like the circumstances, it would have been nice to tender it in November of 2022 with this current council. But again, I understand why. Circumstances, a lot of them needed to get up to speed with such a big project. That delayed it even more.
Yep.
So, it is what it is. It took the council from 2014 to 2018, 4 years just to decide on, the 2 locations that, I wasn't on that council, so I don't know the process that went through, but here we are.
The other thing Larry was saying, and Larry Fold, by the way, is he's one of the administrators for the Facebook group 2025 guys, and he's one of the 3 new grumpy old men that sit at council there doing the watch out for your taxpayer job, because there's always been 3 or 4 guys that were at council. Back in your day, it was the taxpayers group with Koziol and Ian McPherson, and then there was the Rennick and those guys and Mark, and now we got these guys. So anyways, so Larry was saying that he believes that North Bay's growth is a demographic and ethnicity that's not really prone to ice sports. So it may not be the infrastructure that we need going forward, that we won't need the ice.
I'm not of that. I'm not even close to that opinion. To me, if you're trying to grow the city,
you can say that I don't agree with him.
I don't agree with it. I mean, if you're trying to grow the city and you're trying to make it attractive for people to move here,
yeah.
When a family of 4 wants to move here, they're asking questions about what's your education system like, your healthcare system, what are your recreational facilities like? Well, you've got we've heard about this West Ferris arena that's past its best before date, and you know, what are you doing to replace that? Those are the questions that get asked.
Yeah.
And you know, could you put multi-millions of dollars into West Ferris Arena to salvage it? Well, yeah, I guess you could. Is it going to last you another 60 years? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Is it financially prudent to spend all that money into something that, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. You need to look at the bigger picture, and sometimes they're not looking at the bigger picture. In my opinion, yeah, it'd be nice to spend 15, 20 million and rehab West Ferris Arena if you could do it, but what have you got at the end?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, you're taking a facility out of use for 2 years or whatever amount of time it's going to take to rehab it. What are the 1,500 individuals, mostly youth, that used that facility last year? Where do you want them to go play?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happens because we did it in East Ferris. We lost our arena for a year because the renovations didn't, you know, they had to replace all the piping there. They did a bunch of truss work, right? They did a full renovation, right? We lost it. You end up going to Mattawa and beyond for ice time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you remember as well as I very well what happened when we had to take double rinks out of circulation for what, 2 months?
Yeah.
3 months?
Yeah. Prime.
People were packed the council chambers.
Yeah.
Complaining. When are you going to replace? What are you going to do? What are you doing with this facility that is? And they're talking about double rinks.
Yeah.
These facilities need to be upgraded. I am not of the mind that you can just go in and can you do it? Well, you can do anything.
Hey, have you heard of any people in the background sitting waiting for this thing to be shit canned and have proposals for private?
I think there might be one or two current councillors that have had that in their back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, is that an option that's going to be finally brought to the table? I mean,
it should be something the ad hoc committee discusses if they're going to be discussing options.
If they're going to be discussed, that's another reason why I like this ad hoc committee in a sense that we've been hearing for months and months, even before the election in October of 2022, about this private public. We've got this design that we think can work. No one's heard anything of it, and we're into August now. So if this ad hoc committee brings everything to the table, then again, personally, I've seen numbers on a private public. Mm-hmm. For community centers, I don't believe they work to the benefit of the community.
Why so?
Well, you're paying what, $260, $75 an hour for ice rental right now. It's a proven fact, in any community, recreation centers, transit, these things don't make money, they lose money, but these are things that the community needs and wants. So they're subsidized. Well, if you put a private entity in there, a business person, and as they should, they want to make money. They need to make money. So your $275 an hour goes to $600 an hour. The user groups cannot afford that, or most of them can. There's families.
What's the cost for Memorial Gardens ice now? Do you know?
I believe it's around $275. Again, I might be off a bit. I don't think it's hitting $300 yet, but I think it's around $275 to $280 an hour. And West Ferris and double rinks are slightly below that. But
and there's a minor sports discount too, isn't there, for gardens?
There could be. My memory is
I
not
think there is.
tweaking on that one. But again, you're a private public, and there's all kinds of examples of it. You have to strike a deal with the company you're partnering with to subsidize those ice fees. I've seen numbers where it costs $1.7 million a year for the city to subsidize.
Hey, man, stop hitting your cup down.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're going to be pulling a Tom Mason there, ham-fisting.
Oh, my God. You brought a name back from the real past there. It's and the public maybe should see all that information too. I mean, at some point, if they kind of come in with a recommendation in 30 days, but private publics are really, touchy, and I haven't seen one that really works to the and where it makes absolute sense to just do that instead of the city doing it on their own. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm of the same thought myself. Yeah, I don't think this market is big enough to private entities. They need a bigger market so they can drive costs up higher for more profit. It just adds a layer of profit, right? It adds a layer of profit to the cost, and if the city's subsidizing it all, they're paying for that profit.
Right. And after 25 years, in some agreements where the owner turns the facility over to the city after 25 years, well, if you're a private owner of a facility like that, and in year 20, 21, you're going to be turning it over in 4 or 5 years, you're going to be spending bare bones on it. That's just the way it is. And there's numerous cases of municipalities taking them over, and they're having to pour millions of dollars into it to bring it, up to snuff.
Do you think the Bay Today poll with about 60%, which was mentioned in the meeting, which is interesting, 60% of the people that would go to Bay Today and vote in a poll, that's what you're talking about. 60% say just don't do anything, just get out of the arena business. Stop. This thing should be spiked. Do you think that actually reflects the city's thoughts, the residents, the taxpayers?
No, totally no. I mean, I think as a city councillor, you have to, I guess, look at the bigger picture. That's why you're there, to look at the bigger picture. And when you look at the number of people that utilize it, when you look at, I mean, like I said, just for kids, there's over 7,000 residents that come in and out of there from September to April, and then you add in everybody else that's using it. You got to look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is for economic development reasons, for sport tourism reasons, for the local users. You have to do something.
Yeah, a lot of people say that the community is heavy on senior citizens that won't use the community center even, really. A lot of people are not interested in that. They're just trying to get by and make their payments and whatnot, fixed income, right? But the thing is, those same people have grandchildren, and you can't have tournaments here or anything like that. And those grandchildren are going to be playing in those arenas, right? And they wouldn't have any place to go see them. I'm sure even though they're not using them, there's a use there.
Well, again, for every child that's registered to use our recreational facilities, on an average, there's 3 adults that see that kid play. So
you said the number is 1,800 ice sports, right?
Roughly.
Say 2,000, whatever. So times that by 3, 6, 8. You're still not up to 10,000 people as far as involved.
1 in 3. So you've got the 2,000 users.
Yeah.
And then you've got 3 adults that are. So you've got it's about 8,000.
Yeah. So you're not up to 10,000 yet.
No, you've got
in a community of 50 some, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a fraction, really.
Again, that is just for youth hockey or youth sports.
Yeah.
We're not talking about fans that go see the Lakers or Battalion play. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about individuals like me.
Yeah, but we still have the gardens. Yeah, that'll happen, and we'll still have some ice, but we won't have. But what I'm saying is that there less than 10,000 people are directly involved with youth sports, ice sports. three parents per kid, right? So
what other
is that
function or what other entity or what other activity in the city of North Bay provides that much? Do you not feel that?
Oh no, I'm just being facetious, really.
I mean, these individuals, and that's just the local users. It doesn't it doesn't address, the lack of facilities that are hindering attracting sport tourism events here. I mean, it's.
And to Larry's point, when he was talking about people coming here, and basically he was saying that a large part of the growth is people with Asian backgrounds. That's what he's saying, East Indian, whatever. But those kids still want to play hockey. They're in Canada. They want to play hockey.
You got to look at the bigger
There's a
picture,
fraction
and that kind of opinion in my you got to look at the bigger picture. You know what? I'm of Italian descent. Back when my parents immigrated here, the thought of playing ice hockey was, but I ended up taking just like what you just said. Doesn't matter what your background is. When you move to North Bay or you move to any Northern Ontario city, you're probably playing hockey if you're a kid.
And if even further to that, soccer is a big, strong sport here in this town,
mm-hmm.
and there's infrastructure for soccer. There's and football, right? There's and baseball. We got all those infrastructures.
Yeah, think about that infrastructure now.
Yeah.
It's not just Omischl, where there's two artificial turfs. There's the ball fields. There's another natural grass field there.
Yeah.
You've got artificial turf at Schollard. You've got it at
so we got that covered.
University.
Yeah.
We've got outdoor facilities covered, and we're able to attract the kinds of tournaments that we couldn't attract before.
Yeah.
And our user groups are playing in facilities that are,
could be one more good hardball field other than veterans.
Sure, why not?
That would be good.
but look at the facility again. Look at I mentioned earlier on if this council can if their decision is to go direct build. And just build 2 ice pads for $52 million, which seemed to be some sentiment last night, then that's, to me, solves a major problem. Look at the ice surfaces at double rinks and West Ferris. They're small.
Mm-hmm.
They're not NHL ice surfaces. And that's one of the major reasons you're not able to attract high-level tournaments here. You've got AAA hockey here. These kids are playing in boxes that, it's not regulation ice. And then they're going, how many times did I hear over the...
what I'd like to hear is the AAA Association stepping forward and saying, we're willing to pay $300 an hour for ice. And we're going to use that Omischl and commit to it. Because what's going to happen. If it goes, the price of ice goes up too high, they're going to go to continue using Temiskaming and other ice options.
I think the number will come in around where the Gardens is at right now.
Yeah, no, it's going to be tied to that. I think, especially to start, but then it's going to increase incrementally for sure, right? As everything seems to be. I think it's part of this ad hoc committee. There should be people involved from AAA and others saying, yes, we do realize we're going to have to pay for use of this, a little extra.
See, you just brought up an interesting point. So when we started this process in 2012 with the multi-use recreational facility study, and there were champions at that time, right? From the partners in hockey, from the user groups. Mm-hmm. Well, now, we're in here, that was 2012, 2011. We're in 11 years later, and what happens? You went through it. You're in it because you're passionate about it because your kid is playing. So your kid's 10 years old and playing. Yeah. Well, so some of these individuals that were champions back in 2012, their kids are over 20 years old now. So they've fallen away from it a little bit. Yeah. And another cycle is coming in.
Yeah.
And
the new leaders of ice sports in town are going to have to step up and back something.
That's the one thing I haven't heard right up to date. And mm-hmm. I really think that the user groups, the ones that are there now, need to really step up and, maybe they haven't stepped
Update
up
and
because
confirm their support for
maybe
whatever's
they weren't
planned.
part of the process,
Yeah.
and they weren't.
Yeah.
Because it is a cycle.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
once
You're
your child
in, and then
leaves,
you're out.
Yeah.
Mostly. There's a lot of long-standing volunteers still involved, but they're just making it work.
And I know some parents of really small kids that, infants, we don't need it, we don't need it, we don't need it. Wait till your child is 5, 6 years old and says they want to play hockey, and you have to go into double rinks and you have to freeze your you-know-what off because you might think differently back when you finally have to go through it.
There was a brief moment I thought that, and I kind of hoped that Dylan wouldn't get involved with hockey because of my experience with covering it before then. But he was going to school with hockey players, and he wanted to play hockey. His buddies were playing hockey. It wasn't even a choice.
And it's that same scenario that's going to happen. It doesn't matter where people move from or what their background is. Why did I get into hockey as a 10-year-old Italian boy? Because my friends were playing it.
Yeah.
That's not going to change.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your background is. I mean, so I don't know. It's
You touch that again? You touch that cup again? I'm gonna.
What's that?
Don't touch that cup again.
All right. It's a hard thing to do as a counselor, but you got to stay at a high level when you're looking at this. I mean, I wouldn't. You're looking at a Bay Today poll. Is it 100% accurate? Have people voted?
We know
twice?
it's not accurate.
That's exactly. So why are you looking at it? Why is it even? I don't even know why it came up at a council meeting. Really? I mean, you said it. I didn't say it.
Actually, I forget who asked John if he had any idea whether that poll's reflective of what's going on. He goes, I don't want to comment on any poll.
As he should. It's the correct answer. Why are you taking your focus? You can't. You got to look at it more high level.
Yeah.
And to do that, it's nice to look at, but you got to know, you got to understand where that poll is. How many people have voted 2 or 3, 4 times.
Yeah.
To me, it's the same thing as transit. I don't use transit, but is it a necessity in a community? Absolutely. Did I vote to add new buses to replace an aging fleet because the aging fleet was costing us too much money in maintenance? Absolutely. Did we take that average age of our 24 buses or whatever from 17 years to 11 years? Yes, we did. Because that's what we needed to do to provide that service. It's we subsidize transit. Would I do I support that as a taxpayer? Absolutely, I do.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things to factor in, right? So this is very interesting. I think it's a very good case study of municipal operations and planning and systems, I guess. Nothing, I wouldn't say perfect. There's a lot of flaws, but that's human, I guess, right?
I just, I mean, nothing's perfect. And, again, when in 2020 or 2021, when we put a pause on the project because of the pandemic, because of Castle Home uncertainty, that was at the time, that was the right thing to do. Because financially, even as much as I fully support a community recreation center, from a financial, if you're doing your fiduciary duty at the time, you need to take care of that project, Castle Home, financing first. So at the time, it was the right decision. In retrospect, in hindsight,
wouldn't it have been great to tie in a contractor to a tender on an arena in 2019 before the pandemic?
Wouldn't that have been great?
Yeah.
And again, we first started having discussions on replacing West Ferris Arena in January 2014. Okay? And when the council of that day got elected in October of that year, that was one of their priorities that they needed to work through. And over 4 years, they ended up coming up with a site.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, because the way I remembered it, the Murph study and the need to do something about multi-use sports, that was thrown out the window when we had the battalion possibility coming, and instead they moved to renovate the arena. Wasn't that how it happened?
No, it wasn't thrown out the window. I mean, it was
Well,
still
it was,
so.
didn't happen.
So in February, I believe in 2012.
I mean, put up in the dusty place. I'm just kidding. I'm just bugging you.
You're trying to get me going. I mean, again, that project, was there a pause put on that project, on that study after the gardens? Well, yeah, but we also, we didn't expect to do the gardens as quick as we did, because 6 months after the study was done, saying we needed to rehab, that was our first thing to do, the opportunity with the battalion came up. So it accelerated renovating the gardens. And then all that happened, and yeah, we weren't going to touch any recreational facility for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. But reality is, in January of 2014, when we started getting these engineering reports on West Ferris Arena, staff at that time identified we need to start planning to replace West Ferris Arena. Yep. It was initially you from January 2014, the plan was to be in the ground building by 2018. Imagine if that would have happened, but it didn't. Mm-hmm. So it was on the next council to pick up the ball and run with it, and we took it to a point where you have a design, shovel-ready project. And if it wasn't for these things that happened during that term, we'd be in the ground.
So we're 4-1, right down there in the red zone. Do we kick a field goal here, or do we go for it for the touchdown?
I want to see what else they have up their sleeve before I answer that question. I really do. And you know, $70 million, it's a tough pill to swallow. It is. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And as a counselor,
70 million plus interest and shit.
Right. Mm-hmm. But you have to look at all your options. If number one, you have to decide in your own mind, I'm just thinking, I'm talking for myself. Is it something we need to do? Is it something the community needs? Yes, it is. And at the end of the day, what's the best option to move forward at this point in time? And you have to weigh. I would want to see information on a design build, because what's that entail? Is there a chance it's going to come in at 60 million? Well, then if there is, then you have to, for another 10 million, you're giving the community what they asked for. Or is that worth
closer to what they asked for?
Closer to what they asked for, but something that they signed off on before we finalized that whole design. The user groups and were consulted. Everyone signed off on it, and obviously some of them weren't. They still wanted this, or they still wanted that. Some might not have been, Omischl not their number one preference. It wasn't my number one preference. But at the end of the day, that's what council decided. You need to move these things forward. Look where we're at now. We're still in 2012 when the Murph study was done. The consultant, I think, gave us around a 15-year time horizon to replace West Ferris Arena and Double Rink because of aging infrastructure, and they're not adequate. 15 years in 2012. We're in 2023, 11 years later, and we still haven't done the first one yet. So that tells you how hard these projects are to get off the ground. And, this council has got this in front of them now. I just want, if they can't see their way there's got to be something that they, after 30 days, they come up with an option for this council to do. They have to do something. I hope it's not private-public, but we'll see.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you very much. Taking, time out of your busy day, and, I'm sure you were raking the beach somewhere or something. I don't know. What do you do?
Hey, I'm all this is something that's near and dear to my heart. It's been something.
That was my first council meeting in years, sitting in, like at least 2 or 3 years for sure, maybe 3 years.
Well, I saw you. You know what identified you right away is your shirt, your T-shirt. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's him. You didn't have your hat on.
No, I should have worn my hat.
So,
Very interesting. Well, I'm going to be going to more meetings.
Well, it's, again, Friday, they're going to decide on the ad hoc committee. We'll see how that's comprised, and we'll see what comes out of it. But again, if they want to take advantage of that funding, March 2026 is when it has to be completed, from my recollection. Not saying they can't get an extension on that. John Severino seemed to allude last night to the fact that you might be able to still be eligible for the funding and put the project somewhere else.
Possibly.
Possibly.
Depends
Again,
if there's a federal election coming up.
Well, yeah. So if they could do that, and if they did design build and they only built 2 ice pads, regulation ice pads, and they then put them at the gardens, and at least there you've got the Y still, you've got...
And you don't think they have to build a bridge or anything like that? Like, is there costs associated?
No.
I've heard they were like $15 million in infrastructure.
Where I would look at putting it is right in the existing parking lot.
Yeah, and push the parking into the swamp. I mean, the football field.
In the football field, which isn't used very
often.
The
Rolly Fisher field.
These days. You put it in the existing...
But we're losing green space there.
What's that?
You're going to be tearing up green space for parking.
Well, you're building Omischl, you're taking, again, green space. Doesn't matter where you build it. You're taking, it's a little bit more sensitive because it's
Central
Thompson Field. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But again, you got to look at the bigger picture. What's best? And can you picture the current design in your head now?
Yeah, the Trident. Yeah.
So in a funny way,
V for Ray Brush. Yeah.
Yeah. But in a funny way, if you look at the design and you plunk the center of it into the parking lot, you could almost attach 1 ice pad to the Y and 1 ice pad to the gardens. Maybe. Right? The way it's designed, maybe you could. Again, stuff they gotta... And hey, there's an energy park at Memorial Gardens. Can they tap into that?
Well, something has to tap into that because I'm not convinced that was really a great place to put something like that.
I would have put it a little further in a corner somewhere if they wanted to put it there. But anyway, it's there now, and
you can plug in your new Tesla.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, we could talk all day.
Absolutely, and I'm sure there'll be follow-up conversations.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much for putting up with us, and let me know what you think.